So in this series, we're going to create a character AI that's just going to follow our player around. So in order for us to focus on that, let's go up to the top here in the left corner, select File, go down to New Level, and you might have a bunch of different variations here. You don't necessarily want an empty one. You just want to go with a template default, or depending on your version, just sort of a blank empty level. I'm going to go ahead and hit Create. And what you'll notice is, if you followed with the previous tutorials, if I press play, my character will spawn in the scene. Now, if your character jumps pretty high or shows up in the air, you want to make sure that you have a starter, sort of a start point for your character. So what I normally use is grab my player start, and I'll just drag it wherever I want it to be. And this is good regardless, because when we go to test our AI, we generally want it nearby our main character. So now when I press play, here, let me go ahead and just add a basic cube here so you can see that we are in fact facing the same direction as that cube with this player start. All right, so let's begin by creating a folder just to store our character in. So down at the bottom here under content, right click and create a new folder. And we're just going to name this folder AI underscore follow. Now, we're going to put all of our AI assets into this folder, including the blueprints and so forth, because just so we have it compartmentalized. All right, so right click in this folder, select blueprint class. And what we're going to be doing is using the character pawn type so that it gives us control of all the movement. Now I'd like to name this npc underscore f underscore bp. So this is our non-playable character that follows blueprint. All right, so let's double click this and open it up. I'm going to dock this to the top here. Now for this particular assignment for class, if you don't have your character done, you can still get full credit if you do this, but you use the Manny character. So I'm going to select mesh here, and on the animation class here, I'm going to click on that, and I'm just going to select ABP Manny. And then for the skeletal mesh, I'm going to select the Manny character. And now you can see that this character idles. You can bring it down. Same as before, I'm going to rotate that negative 90 degrees. Now for me, because I want this to be sort of all of my own original characters, what I can do is, where it has skeletal mesh here, is I'm just going to switch it out to my, essentially my robot static skeletal mesh character, which you see is pretty big. And then up here, it switched out the animation class for me. So I'm going to select that, and I'm going to look for my robot move 245 animation blueprint. And now you can see it's idling. Now I'm going to compile and save that, and let's just go ahead and drag this character and drop it in the scene. And I'm going to press play here, and now you could see that the other character is in the scene. It's facing that direction, which is fine. And also it's facing the direction of, if I click off this for a second, that blue arrow, which is the forward direction. I'm going to select this and delete this cube for a moment because we don't need that. Now what we need to make this character move and connect it to a essentially our behavior tree and blackboard and so forth, and don't worry if those words seem foreign to you, I'm going to get into all of that in a second, is we actually need an animation or AI controller, rather, artificial intelligence controller. So I'm going to right click in here, and I'm going to create a new blueprint class here. Now you might not see it up here, but down here at the bottom, if you type in AI, you'll see that there is a AI controller class here. And if I select that and I hit select, you can see it created one here. And I'm just going to keep with the same naming convention. So NPC underscore F for follow underscore AIC. Now I tend to do this too, because whenever I'm doing a tutorial, you can see I was actually working on a different AI component. It can get pretty confusing in that dropdown when you select it to make sure everything is the same. So I'm going to double click this NPC AI controller here, just to open it up so you can take a look at sort of what it looks like. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and save this, and let's go back to our NPC F blueprint. And if you click on the top here where it's saying self, you'll see off to the side here, it says AI controller class. And this is what we want to link up this NPC follow AI controller. So if I click on this, and you can see here, because we added that F, it made it a little bit easier to make sure that we were linking up the correct ones. Let's compile and save that. All right, so let's return back to our untitled scene here. And I'm going to right click again. I'm going to go to artificial intelligence. I'm going to select behavior tree. And I'm going to rename this NPC underscore F underscore BT for behavior tree. Now, what a behavior tree is a reverse. So this looks like a series of roots or branches that are going in reverse way of sending or moving logic or AI logic around. So like getting our character to move to a specific location or looking for characters. So we can build out these trees. Now, if you haven't seen my my theory on AI video where I go through the PowerPoints, you might want to go back and review that, because that's where I get pretty deep into the research and the history behind how AI and behavior trees work. But for now, just we'll get a little bit more in detail when we start to like plot this out or build out our behavior tree. But for now, just go ahead and save this. And remember this name, because we need to link this in the event graph inside of our AI controller here. So let's do that. Go to your event graph here, and I'm going to go ahead and get rid of event tick. Now on event begin play, and if you're not familiar with this, what this does is as we press play in the scene or as our level starts, because our character is already live in the environment, it'll automatically call whatever this node is linked to. And what we want to do is we want to link this behavior tree to this graph, or to this behavior tree to our AI controller here rather. And this is pretty easy to do. I'm just going to right click and type run, and you can see run behavior tree here, and then you just link them together. Now remember the name of your behavior tree, which is NPCF behavior tree. So that's this one right here. So now let's compile and save this. Once this AI controller, which we've linked here, if you recall down here, once this character is in our scene, this event's going to immediately start beginning to play whatever we do inside this behavior tree. Now off to the side here, if I click on blackboard here, you can see there's a previous blackboard for another character that I'd created before. So what we want to do is create another blackboard, which really you can think about as a series of parameters or variables that we're going to be using within our behavior tree. So let's go ahead and right click in here, go to artificial intelligence and enter blackboard here, and same naming convention, NPC underscore F underscore blackboard. And I'm going to go ahead and open this up, and now when I click blackboard, you're going to have to link it. So see how it opened up this example blackboard enemy? Well, inside of here, let's see, here's our behavior tree. Let's go back to our behavior tree and make sure that's open. There we go. And then we want to take this and we want to relink it to that F underscore blackboard. And now when I go back and forth, you can see it opened up the correct blackboard and I get to the right behavior tree. So let's go ahead and save each one of these, making sure that they're linked correctly. And this is sort of apparent too, because when you're going through this, you want to make sure that you, especially if you're building up multiple AIs, that you have these linked correctly. All right, so let's go ahead and now that we're in here, let's start working on building out our behavior tree. So when I left click and I just drag out with my mouse and I release the left mouse button, you'll see I get these options. And there's simple, parallel, there's sequence, and selector. Now, sequence, you can think of it as running a sequence of events in order, and you can have stoppers in there. Simple parallel is sort of running two events that you're running off at the same time. And what we're looking for at first is just the selector. So what this does is you can see there's a number, it says 0. And so it kind of goes down and it'll select things in order of operation. And you can also, there's options within our sequence, which we're going to drag in a second, which allows us to control the flow of information that runs through. So right now, all you have to think about is this is the root or the starting point. And then we have our selector, which is going to sequence through a series of things. So for example, if I drag this out and I add a, you can see there's a bunch of stuff down here, move to, wait. I'm going to go with a sequence. So I'm going to add a sequence here. You can see there's a little number here. It says 1. And the more, what you can do is you can have a series of sequences. And like I said, as a selector, it'll run through those. And let's say we add a move to here. You can see this says 2. So it'll run this sequence first, which is a bunch of little nodes that we can add underneath here. So we can do like make noise. So it'll run through this sequence, and then it'll come back up to our selector, and it'll go down to 3. So it'll go 1, 2, and 3. So for now, let's say we want to have our AI run to random locations. And this kind of gives the impression that our character is sort of following a sort of a train of thought. And what we do is we can use these tasks here under tasks where they have like move to, play sound, run behavior. What we're going to do is create a custom task, which is up here. So when you click on new task here, you can see it gives us a few to model from. I'm just going to select this move to, and what it's prompting me for now is like, well, where do you want to save this task to? So I'm going to leave this saved as move to, and then I'm going to just leave that underscore F underscore, and then we could type out TK for task if you want to use that as your Teams convention. You know how we have BP and AIC. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save there. Now it popped open here. I'm going to compile and save that. A new tab, and that's where we can actually create the task itself. So in this particular case, right when it starts, we want it to just run around to a random location. And it'll be based on sort of and we want to store that data out into a target location variable. So let's go ahead and do that now. All right, so what we want to do is when an animation or trigger event or something happens, we want to go ahead and execute the AI, right? So I'm going to right click on this, and I'm just going to type in event execute, and here we have fn execute AI. And essentially what this is going to say is once this is triggered or this event happens, we're going to execute whatever comes later that we chain through this node. All right, so let's go ahead and create another node, and it's just called get random. Let's see if I can get random point in navigable radius. So what this does is it helps us to grab a random point inside of a navigation mesh. So we actually didn't even do that yet. So let's go back to our untitled scene here. I'm going to click this little quickly add to project option box here. And under volumes down here, I want to grab a nav mesh bounds volume. So once I click on it, you can see that it appears here. Now, P like pickle or Paul, if I bring this down here and I press that key, you can see it turns on and off the viewable area of our navigation mesh. So this really just marks where our AI can walk. So I'm going to go ahead and expand this out pretty far like this. And I want to make sure that our AI here is facing in this direction. I'm going to hit E to kind of rotate this a little bit so that when we press play, we can see that our character's off to the side. And so that's the area in which this character can roam. So it's kind of a nice way to make our character run out. Another thing is if you want to block this character, you can actually build out like little walls. So let's go ahead and just drag this down here into our scene. What you'll notice is the AI will update in real time. So something like this. I can maybe build like a little wall for our character to hide behind. So something like that. All right, let's return. I'm going to go ahead and hit Control S to save this, and just save this as like AI underscore F underscore level. So that's our follow level for testing all follow stuff. All right, so let's go back to our task here. Now what I'd like to do is grab the current location of this character here. And so what I can do is I can just right click and just type get actor location. And what that's going to do, let's see if I can, let's see, get, I might have to turn off context if you're, let's see, context sensitive. There we go. So get actor location. And what this does is we want to get the controlled pawn, which is that character, the AI one that we're building out now. And the value that we're looking for that we're going to be using as the start point that we broadcast out our random location is going to be the current location of that actor. Now, if you remember, our AI controller here is controlling sort of the way this character communicates with this navigation mesh, right? And so when we go back into this AI controller, we can, when we go into our behavior tree, let me go ahead and save this out. We can actually grab or store the current location of that character and where it's moving around in the scene and broadcast it. So that's where Blackboard comes into play. So for example, if we just sort of reiterate for a second, once our character begins playing, let's see, here we go. Once our event executes and we're running through this, this event receive execute AI is actually once it hits that sequence or when we drag in that move to that we created. So let's actually really quickly link this in. So I'm going to type in move to F2K, that's this. So once this hits here, it'll run through these commands. And what we want to do is let's go to our behavior tree. Let's save this. Let's go to our Blackboard and let's create a key to store the current location of our NPC. So let's create let's do a vector, which is the X, Y, and Z position of our character. And let's do NPC. And we're going to change this in a second, actually. Underscore location. All right, so let's save this. And when you go back to your behavior tree, you should see it down here. If you don't see it for whatever reason, what you can do is close this and refresh it, but it should pop up down here. So once we select this, our move to option, we can link it to this NPC location. All right, so let's return to our move to follow task and create a new variable. And we're going to call this the same thing as before, NPC underscore location. And then instead of it being a Boolean, we want to grab make this a Blackboard key selector, because what we're doing is we're connecting this. And let's make this public so that we can access it other places. So this is giving us access to any of the Blackboard keys that we see. Save this out. When we go to our Blackboard here. So it's connecting us to any of these keys that we want to have access to. All right, so how do we do that? So go ahead and hold the control key and drag this out. Another thing is, if you left click and just drag this out, it's going to give you the option to get and set. So if I get this value, what I want to do is I want to set this value to the value of my Blackboard key, that vector that we created earlier. So I just drag this out and I type set, and you can do Blackboard, and it says Blackboard components, Blackboard. I can do a value as a vector. So if you remember, and we want to drag this in here. Oops. You know what? Let's make sure that I have the right one. So set Blackboard. There we go. Value as vector. And I'm going to link that to this key here. Let's kind of bring this down here because we have to link these up. Now, something else that I want to do is the radius here is how far out from that character we want to search. So for now, we can adjust this value, but let's do 1000. And let's take random location and let's link it up to the value here. So now we're exporting out that random location, and we're re-updating where our NPC is in our environment, or sending them to that random place. Now there's one last thing we need, and if we look back at our behavior tree, once this is finished, we need to let the graph know, or the event know, that here we are, we started the event, we went through these things, and we need to end the event. So back in here, it's pretty easy. We're just going to use a finish execute node, just letting it know that we've completed the, let's see. Geez, I cannot type today. There we go. Finish execute node, which is this second one here. And we're just going to link this up. And if it reaches the end here, we want to send a success Boolean message, essentially, or we want to log or store that we've been successful once it runs through this. So let's go ahead and compile and save that. All right, let's go back to our behavior tree. Let's make sure we save this too. Now you'll notice that it expanded once we saved that off and we finished the execution. And if we click on this, it says NPC underscore location. You want to make sure that we select that key to link it up rather than self actor. And that's going to kind of close the loop of connecting this NPC location key to the let's go back to our blackboard. This to this vector that we created, this NPC location. So that's sort of what kind of brings it full circle to connect those two variables. If it's a little confusing, it's okay. We're going to be doing a little bit more of this AI stuff throughout the semester, and we're going to dive deeper into all of this. And it's a pretty repetitive task. It'll eventually click. Also set an appointment with me if it doesn't make sense so we can review it together. And actually, what might make sense for this is, let's compile and save this. If we go in here and we rename this to, actually, instead of move to, we'll say random location. And then we just keep the F in there just for the sake of the follow stuff. But now you can see it also updated here. So let's save that out. So I also want to use, let's see, let's go back to our behavior tree. The reason I want to rename that as well is just because once our character, this is like, all this is doing right now is it's finding a random location. We're not actually moving our character yet. So once we grab our random location, we can go ahead and grab that move to. So let's go to tasks. Now I have two move tos in here. You just want to make sure that you have the one that allows you to input a blackboard key. So what we're doing here is we find the random location, and then we're going to move to this NPC location here. So let's save this. All right, let's test this. So I'm going to go ahead and press play, and you can see now our character just keeps walking around randomly. All right, I'm going to end this video here because it'll give you time to sort of catch up and go through if there's any errors. And what we'll do in the next one is we'll have the character perceive our main character and then follow him.